We are being bombarded with higher frequency energies that we have not had before. And that affects not just this planet, Gaia, it affects everything on her. They can shapeshift, they can do remote viewing. They have learned how to use that subconscious mind. The mind always wants to be in charge. The mind is really not equipped to be driving the bus. It's a tool, it's a very powerful tool, but it doesn't know what the soul really wants and how to do it, where the soul does, right? You've got to surrender that steering wheel and put your team behind it. The vision of the dog hanging out the car window, right? He's excited and he doesn't know where they're going, but he knows that whoever's behind that wheel has his best interest at heart.
Guy here, welcome to my podcast, or if you're new, welcome. I'm recording this podcast intro. I'm tired, I'm jet lagged, and it's getting late here in the evening, but I just wanted to make sure this reaches final production. So the podcast goes out on time next week, all the boring stuff that you don't really care about anyway. But I found myself flying back from Europe with the family. And when you have a 4.5-year-old and 11-month-old on a 14-hour flight coming back on the second leg from Dubai, it is interesting dynamics, that's for sure, especially when your little one does not want to go to sleep. But all the same, make hay when the sun shines, you make the most of it. Anyway, back to the show. Robbie Holtz is my beautiful guest today. I welcome her back to the podcast. She's been on before. I love this lady, and if you're new to her work, I'm excited because the reason why I invited her back on is because I find myself talking about her and her book so much at our workshops and retreats that I want to just bring exposure to it. So one thing I will say is be sure to buy her books. I wouldn't get it spoilers away. We get into it all today, but even the podcast that we recorded a couple of years back, if you enjoy this one today, be sure to go back that one as well, because that one dives deep. But we get into, the indigenous or the truthless dimensional beings of this planet. And, there's a lot of conversation around the Earth shifting frequencies at the moment. And that's why there's so much turmoil, and which all makes sense as well. Anyway, it's a beautiful conversation. There's a lot of wisdom in this podcast. I did record it a few weeks ago, but I just remember that feeling when I get off a podcast going, oh, that was great. And I have no doubt you'll get a lot out of it. My other podcast with Pete Mountshasta that went out last week is doing really well and had huge feedback as well. And if you want your mind blown around that and Ascended Masters and Spirits, that's an amazing episode as well. Anyway, I'm rambling now. If you are new to my podcast, please say hello in the comments on YouTube. Let me know where you are in the world. And it's always great to connect. I really do my best to get back to the comments and read them and things like that as well, which is wonderful. We'll be in Bali in 2025. Come and join us. It's selling well. Our January retreat in Australia is sold out. And if you're new altogether and not sure about our events yet, there's a free meditation in the link below as well, which has 3 meditations, morning, noon, and night. It's a great place to start if you want to check it out. Anyway, myself from me, enjoy this podcast for Robbie. Catch you soon. Robbie, welcome back to the podcast, my lovely. So good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy. I'm so glad to be here.
I reached back out to you because, honestly, I was trying to work it out. I was having a shower earlier before I jumped on the podcast, and I was trying to work out how many events we've done in the last year. And I think we've done about 28 one-day events. And we're about to roll into our 6th retreat in 12 months. So there's a lot of people we get in front of. And honestly, Robbie, nearly every single event I end up mentioning in your book.
The Secrets of Aboriginal Healing? Okay.
The Secrets of Aboriginal Healing.
Yeah.
It just comes out. That book had such a bloody profound impact on me. Just the way it was done, written, reading, the simplicity, but it's almost like the no bullshit approach. It's like, this is what it is. And there's such a connection to that. I wish it was in every high school and everyone, like, it should be just recommended reading. Truly.
Yeah. Guy, what surprised me is, we put that book out at the request of the Aboriginal people who really wanted to get this information out because they knew it would make a difference. And I did not expect to see so many people embrace it to the point where now I've been trying to keep track of the people who email me from all over the world, and I've counted 45 countries that I'm aware of that these books are now in. So that really tells me that it resonates with people, no matter what country they're in. it just really, people can really feel the connection to it.
Mm.
So
I struggle to see how it can't. Like, if you get to a point where you're ready to step on the spiritual path and really start
uh-huh.
to explore the inward journey and that connection to Earth and the universe and everything, then there's just something about it. For me, it's pivotal reading. It's like, yes, everyone, go read it, please,
Yeah,
and start
yeah,
applying those principles in your life. Like,
yeah.
when was that book written? Was it after Gary's passing? Like, did that book was published and come out?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. It was written when he came back from the Outback. He decided to have this written, but it was never published. We were going to publish it, but we just were so busy with people coming to us wanting help that we couldn't keep up with the demand. So the book really got pushed to the side. And then we decided we could help more people if we got this information out, rather than one-on-one and doing speaking events. This could, put this information out into more hands. And then, Gary passed. So I put this out more just in honor of him. I certainly didn't expect it to take off and be so well received. So, and I don't know how much he was involved from the other side. Now that I say that, it occurs to me that I might have had a little bit of help getting that out there. But yeah, it was I put it out for him after he passed, and it's just taken off. So
And
yeah,
wonderful. And I think, because I want to get into other topics today as well, chatting, but I have no
mhm,
doubt a lot of people listening will be hearing you for the first time. And it'd be nice to maybe share, a little bit of a summary of the secrets of Aboriginal healing and what happened. Like, when Gary, like, could you start with Gary, like how he was struggling and how somebody met him in a
yeah,
bar? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many coincidences, quote unquote. It's interesting. Gary was actually a very well respected physicist. He had inventions. He had been on magazine covers for a physicist. And that's a pretty scientific black and white world that he lived in. But he ended up developing MS, and he had that for a number of years. And Gary is such a determined guy that he's still, even when he ended up as a quadriplegic in a wheelchair, he's still operating as a physicist, taking, plane rides and everything else. But it got to the point where the doctor said, he really had about 6 months left to live. And he knew that he had to find answers because he had two children that were still alive that he wanted to be around for them. It's a heck of a motivator. So he found out through the woman in the bar that you just mentioned a little ago. He went into a jazz bar. He loved jazz, and he was kind of soothing his soul. And through a number of serendipitous events, he met this woman who was from the Outback who knew about the healing abilities of the Aboriginal people. And so he contacted them, and it's in the book, Secrets of Aboriginal Healing, and flew out within 2 weeks as a quad in a chair in the back of the plane for, how many hours that is from the United States. And then he went in, he was unlifted as cargo from the plane. And then he went into the Outback with one of the tribes people. Two of them had the tribe that he stayed with in the Outback did not have any connection to civilization, but two of their members
wow.
did sometimes go into the cities. They had children that were in the cities. So they would go back and forth. And so that was his connection, and that was his way in. And he went as a quad. He hadn't had feeling for 7 years. And he came out of that desert after being with these people and their healing modalities. 10 days later, he came out able to clumsily walk on that flight back home by, walking down the aisle of the plane, supporting himself with the chairs. But still, that was remarkable. And he had feeling in his body for the first time in 7 years. 7 years, that's a long time. So he learned about their healing modalities, which had been passed on word of mouth for generations and generations, at least 60,000 years, longer than that. These are their healing modalities that have always been passed down. They had not disclosed that to any other person, a white person, except one Chinaman years ago. We don't know what happened to that information. But they asked him to take this information out into the world because they said that we civilized tribes, again in quotes, didn't really understand how healing worked. And so Gary, being the physicist, came back from the Outback, and it just rocked his world. It just completely changed everything. So he went back to get a doctorate in psychoneuroimmunology. how the
Which
mind,
means, yeah.
how the mind affects the body. He got a degree, a doctor's degree in that, and also in
Oh.
nutrition, how the body, can be helped with nutrition and that sort of thing. And then he spent the rest of his days teaching this information to people. And he ended up developing tremendous healing abilities and didn't know. I mean, it was just to him, the biggest thing was believing in gray that can't be proven. That was really huge for him as a scientist. It was always black and white. If it can't be duplicated and proven, it doesn't exist to him. But that changed. And he came back and he started developing the same abilities that he had noted in the Aboriginal people that he was with. He could see auras, he could see inside the body, he could see tumors, he could talk to telepathically to people. And it was always interesting that he would talk to the patients when he came back. And the only ones who really knew he was talking to them were the autistic people. There was no filters. They always knew he was communicating to them. So he started healing. He started with animals and then he started working on people. And that's when I came into his world. And we started doing that together then. So
Now, a couple of questions, because there's still, every time I hearing you coming out straight out your mouth, it's like, wow, like it gives me goosebumps, truly, because there's a lot of people that are so entrenched in the masculine, the analytical side of things. Everything is black and white, everything is like this. It can feel very hard to tap into that emotion, that free flowing, get connected with oneself and get beyond those five senses and start to experience something more.
yeah.
And for Gary, no, I believe they knew he was coming. Is that correct? Even before they were expecting him?
Yes. Before he even contacted them, they said, "What took you so long?" They knew he was coming. But and the Aboriginal people that I'm talking about are the ones that I like to think that they are in a fifth dimensional frequency. They're very advanced. They're very telepathic. They will connect to the plants and find out what is needed for what. They can talk and find out where the water is. They can shape shift. They can do remote viewing. They have learned how to use that subconscious mind. And these guys are safeguarded in this. I mean, the desert is vast. It's just so big. So they are able to be remote and live in that world, So he observed when he was there in the village, he saw them spending an awful lot of time, what he thought they were just daydreaming. And it turns out that they were sort of in the dream time, creating and going off into all different kinds of places. He didn't realize that's what they were doing until later. And then he came back and spent more time doing that sort of thing as well. He would sit in his and just meditate for hours every
Wow.
day. And that's more real, they'll tell you, than this illusion that we live in.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Are these tribes still untouched? Do you know, or is Western society now infiltrated?
That's a great question, Guy. Well, first of all, I don't have contact with the tribes anymore. Actually went into the outback and performed ceremonies myself and got to experience that. But
Wow.
as I understand it, these remote tribes are leaving. I think that's probably another reason they gave us this information. They're leaving. It's harder for them to sing on the ley lines. It's harder for them to live the kind of life they did. I don't think that there's a lot of them out there. And as I understand it, they keep dwindling in number all the time.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
shame, isn't it? Sing on the ley lines. Can you expand on that?
Well, I mean, I know we just talked a minute ago about you going on the ley lines where that's the energy of the earth, right? And so they understand. I love this idea of when they go on these walkabouts, it's like a giant labyrinth, and they're going on the ley lines where the energy is and singing and putting things back in order with the energies to these
Wow.
places. It's just so advanced to what, we know. They really are so connected to that. The more you realize, and maybe that's why, Gary and I came from the United States, we had no concept of Aboriginal people at all. So we weren't prejudiced. We didn't have any information at all. We went in and just observed. And what we learned is that they don't have, again, it's fifth dimensional living. They're showing us how this works and how to get there. They don't have possessive words. There's none of this my, yours, mine. And there's no judgment. There's no criticism. It's just such a loving, compassionate community where they all help to be of service for each other. There's no ego. That's what we learned with the ones that we were with. There's a lot of nations, tribes, whatever you want to call it, but they're not very large. And the ones that he was with were not very large. I think there were about maybe 24 that were consisted of this particular nation.
Wow.
So I watch here in the United States, I watch the shows that are on television. They're so competitive. There's winners and losers all the time. And it's like, I will look forward to the day when we don't do that anymore. It's just not part of our consciousness.
Totally. And I don't know whether it's just the biased lens. I'm seeing it through my filter at the moment, but I really feel like we're moving in that direction.
Yeah,
That
I do
more
too.
and more people are actually wanting to be unified and seeing that we are all connected, that we are actually all from the same source. And
Mhm.
we have this opportunity to co-create together and bring those connections back, as opposed
Yeah,
to this division and separation that's just been hammered into us. But
yeah.
it's not innate in us. That's the thing.
No, but I think the younger ones coming in, it is. It's
Yeah.
changing very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am on just sort of wrapping up this topic with Gary then, and the secrets of Aboriginal healing and that. How would you define the word healing then? And what were the key factors that come out of Gary's experience with the tribe?
Well, and it doesn't seem like it's so far-fetched now, but it was very different back then when he came back from the outback to recognize that the mind plays a very distinct role in healing and sustained healing. And what was even more, so that's the neuroimmunology part, the mind affecting the body and the healing process. But what they also taught him is that the soul is very involved in it. It's a combination of the body, the soul, and the emotions, the mind, right? And that if you have all three of those on board, anything can be healed. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But you've got to make sure that that body is now capable of healing. Some people wait too long and it just can't. But I think the biggest thing, and this is what the Aboriginal people were trying to convey to us, is the mind is such an important role in healing and also creating disease. And Dr. Emoto, I'm sure Dr. Emoto with his photography, has probably reached, Australia and been very popular there, showed us what cells are created depending on the emotions behind it, and that the fear-based ones are very discombobulated and they're just not high functioning and they're very low frequency and they don't hold a lot of light. And whereas love and compassion and self-hatred is one of the hardest things on the body, and guilt. Who'd have guessed,
Mhm.
And forgiveness is a very high vibrating, healing emotion and frequency. And it creates a different cell. It creates a different energy flow. It creates this thriving, raging river of energy when you have those love-based emotions. Whereas the fear-based ones create more of a swampy, perfect breeding ground for disease. And we can see that in the cells. And so you start to pay attention to, because it's so innate in us, it's so second nature that we don't realize how much negativity we're thinking and feeling and creating. And that what we're obsessed about sometimes is not what we want to be creating, but that's exactly what we're creating. So that's what the Aboriginal people were telling us, is that you've got to become aware. Well, first of all, the very first step is willingness. You have to be willing to let go of these negative emotions. Don't be suppressing them, but feel them and then let it go. Whereas, and I don't know if it's the same way in Australia, but I know here in the States, we tend to hang on to this stuff, and have hung on to, we've hung on to these things for years, right? And it's about
Yeah,
letting it go.
I just going to say, people are just not aware of this. That's what drives me
Yeah.
mad. And the book lays it out so eloquently, because we have people we just finished a retreat last week, and we have people walking in that have been holding on to stuff for so long. They're not even aware they're holding on to it because it's been so long since they decided at some unconscious level to hold on.
And that's what happened to Gary. He was raised with a very abusive alcoholic father who used to beat him. And so Gary got really good with that brilliant mind of his at numbing himself to those emotions and to what was going on with his abusive father. to the point where he numbed himself physically as well. That was the connection. So, we tend to hold energy in different places, different emotions in different places. We hold a lot of grief in our chest. If you don't let go of that at some point and you have a propensity, a genetic predisposition to heart disease or breast cancer, whatever, you could be setting yourself up for some health issues, disease. So it's about recognizing how to feel these things. I remember so well, Guy, the Aboriginal saying, you people, civilized tribes, however you want to define us, we hang on to stuff. We just don't want to let go of it. And their philosophy is you have it come and experience it, and then you just move on. What's next? You know, rather than just getting stuck. And that's when Gary released those emotions and that hatred towards his father and all of that. That's when he started to heal. And that's what happened in the outback.
Wow. Do you think when he arrived there that he hadn't even put two and two together?
No clue.
No clue.
No
So
clue.
then with such a hard-nosed scientific mind, like, he must have been pretty stubborn to get into his emotional state that he was and actually fly to the outback to be cracked wide open.
Yeah.
Was it a defining point that allowed him to fully let go? Or was it just pain? Like, how did they get him there?
Yeah. I think it got to the point where it was sheer desperation. He's going to die in 6 months if he doesn't stop.
Right.
Talk about motivation to change, right? And I also think that so he was working with these two healers during the day who could speak English to him. And then the tribe was doing their healing. They might not have been in the room, but they were also sending energy and healing to him as well. I don't think he knew that till later, but they were loosening him up. They were sending energies to him to help him let go and to just get those aha moments, right? And you realize, and that's the part, I said earlier about it's the mind, body, spirit. You start recognizing we're souls and we're here at this challenging earth school and that these things happen for a reason. That's what we're here to learn. And so when you realize, oh, it was really for my own growth, for my own evolution, it was a blessing, but it may not have felt like it. That's when you start to let go, realizing, oh, it was a gift, even though it didn't come packaged at all the way I wanted it to come.
Yeah. Well, were there any other principles that were then led on from that once he was cracked open and allowing that to flow to help the healing?
I think he realized then how big a part the mind plays in creating the disease. And also, I talked a minute ago about somebody who is carrying a lot of grief in their chest area. That's where that energy sticks. And if you have cancerous tumors develop, and they take them out in an operation, can't find any more cancer, so you back up. If you continue to have those same emotions that created it, it'll come back again. So to sustain that healing, you need to actually change. And that's what the first step is. Are you willing? Are you willing to make changes? Are you willing to stop creating these emotions that are just crumbling? It's just too much for the body. It's too much. We have this incessant thinking that just is almost a disease itself on some level. And we are constantly either creating a healthy body or not. The body's trying to heal. Are you working with it or against it? But what I think, if you go into the second book, was kind of a sequel, the Aboriginal Secrets of Awakening. That to me is a very interesting book because it talks about when Gary came back and realized he started to develop these abilities that he had seen in the outback, and he started healing people. And he started seeing that sometimes it doesn't matter what the mind and the body are doing if the soul's not on board. We talk about this blind child, just the most precious child that was brought to us who was born blind. And Gary, the first question he always asked is, am I allowed to assist? Because if it's not the soul's intention to heal, it's not going to heal. It's not going to heal to the extent that you want it to, and it's not going to sustain it. Because that illness or whatever it is here to teach you. It's here to help you grow. It's here to help in a number of levels. And that child came in with that blindness, very deliberately for that soul's intentions of what it was here to learn, because it was a very different lifestyle.
Question for you on that then, because I find that absolutely fascinating, is that if the soul, how do we know as an individual we might be suffering and in pain or have some disease or a blindness, and yet the soul isn't on board yet because it's there to teach us or serve us a lesson? How do we, as the person, know that if the soul is on board or not? And
That's a great question. So what happened after Gary passed is I started developing the healing abilities I didn't know I had, but I was working with a team from the other side of the Dale. Gary was part of that team. Aboriginal healers were part of that team, and angels and others. And so when people would come to me, because I would work with people all over the world remotely, and the first thing I had to ask is, am I supposed to help this person? Are they going to be able to heal this? And sometimes the team, the healing team would help me understand it can be healed when they understand the lesson. And so they have to understand, and when it's no longer needed, right? So if they finally understand and then they let it go and move beyond it, that's when they're able to heal. And that quite often is what happens. The soul's not on board until you've understood and are living the reason that's in your life. So you start recognizing what your homework is by where are you getting stuck emotionally in a negative way. That will tell you where your homework is. Where are you getting stuck in a negative way? Rather than just being love-based, compassion, not judgmental. And so if you have, and I'll give you this example. I lost a very dear family member to smoking. And I went back and helped and stayed with him for quite a while. And he had a brain tumor from the smoking. And I got really upset with my other family members who were continuing to smoke, because I thought, I'm going to lose you guys to cancer too. And I got really upset with them smoking. And I found myself surrounded by smokers. I couldn't seem to get away from them. And then I started to realize if you go in, those answers are there. Like you asked, how do you know? You start asking, make it obvious to me. Help me understand what I need to learn, why this is on my path. How is it here to help me grow? When I finally started to get, it's about recognizing that's just their journey. They're learning about what happens when you don't honor and respect the body. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's their class that they're in. My class is to not judge that and to have acceptance. I don't have to like it, but I accept that's their journey. When I did that, the smokers went away. I didn't need that anymore. And so it's the same thing, whether it's going to be a physical thing or, an emotional thing. However, I will say that some people need to pay attention to, if you hold on to these negative emotions and you create them for so long and the body is just crumbling under the weight of all that, you may get to the point where it's too late. That body can't heal itself. You've just created a lot of damage for far too long. But that's not usually the case. Quite often, most of the people that came to me, they could be healed. And they just needed to understand where they were creating that dis-ease.
And
whatever's uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable to you emotionally, it's uncomfortable and affecting the body.
Yeah, okay. And did you find most people, by the time they were coming to you, the willingness was there because they've kind of
Yes.
Yeah.
And my team was opening them up just like the Aboriginals were doing with Gary in the Outback. They're opening them up and they're planting the seed and helping it stick.
Yeah, okay. I got one last question, and then I want to start talking about your team because you refer to them quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
What did Gary eat when he was with the Aboriginals?
Well, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. He ate, are they called honey ants? Little honey ants?
Maybe.
Grubs. Yeah, I know that he ate honey ants and he ate grubs. I think there were some root vegetables. And I know that, and we talk about it in the book, Secrets of Aboriginal Healing, they caught a pig, a wild boar. And I didn't know that. And they roasted that as kind of a celebration for him. I didn't know that until I was cleaning out one of the closets and I came across these tusks that he had brought with him. He brought those home. And I'm like, what, do we need these? And he told me what they are. So I still have tusk in my closet. But yeah, so he ate that too. So when I went into the Outback years later, I thought, okay, I'm going to end up eating I psyched myself up for eating grubs and honey ants or whatever they're called, and brought a lot of energy bars. My son said, take different kinds or you're just going to get sick of eating. And then come to find out that we didn't have to deal with that. So,
It's fascinating. It's very different to hospital food, isn't it? If somebody goes in and away, that's for sure. Yeah, no wonder
yeah.
they came back and studied nutrition as well, because
Yeah.
incredible,
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. The other question I had for you as well is, am I right in that you've had 2 near-death experiences yourself?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes. I'm a bit of an overachiever that way. Yes, I did. I, well, when I delivered my son, I had a very long, difficult labor. It was like 32 hours, something like that, which is a long time. And so I was in pretty bad shape after he was born. And I remember the nurse sticking her head in the door and saying, "Do you want a blood transfusion? It'll perk you up a little bit faster." I had no clue. I just, yeah, sure. Well, the blood transfusion was tainted with hepatitis C. And back then they didn't even know it existed. They just called it non-A, non-B. So they didn't even know it existed. So they certainly didn't have a cure for it. So the hepatitis almost killed me. And then the experimental treatment that the medical doctors put me on almost killed me again. So I got pretty knocked down twice. I almost died twice, but I kept surviving these really slim odds, just the tiniest odds. I'd still be here, right? And then down the road, using actually the principles I didn't realize at the time, but I was using the same principles as the Aboriginal healers had recommended. I ended up healing what they said was incurable. The doctors, I happened to be in Seattle area, and the experimental doctors were here at the university in Seattle, and they were the top notch. And they followed me and said, "This is an incurable." But I did cure it later, and they didn't know how that happened. I knew how it happened, but they were medical doctors. They wouldn't be open to
And what was the incurable? What was it?
the hepatitis C.
That was the hepatitis C.
Yeah, because the hepatitis almost killed me, and then the experimental treatment almost killed me.
Right,
So I
gotcha.
was not able to take that drug anymore. There was nothing they had to offer. So that's when I started going off into this natural way of healing and ended up healing. And then the experimental doctors would test me all the time and said, "Yeah, you've healed it." So
And do you feel that was literally with harnessing the mind to overcome the body and really leaning into that
yes,
aspect
but
of that?
but I think the biggest part, Guy, was that my soul wanted me to experience that and
Huh.
heal it so that I could teach other people how to do it. It's pretty hard. I think people respect that your philosophy on healing when you've healed yourself completely
Yeah.
of what they said is incurable. And I think that's why I needed to go through that experience.
Wow. Wow. So moving on then to your team, um, have you always had that spiritual belief and backbone and experience to your life, or did you have to go through what you've kind of described to start to connect to what you
Yeah.
say, tribes, ancient ones, angels,
Yeah.
whatever you want
Yeah.
to, however you frame them?
Well, I was not aware at all. I tell you, when I survived the second time I almost died, that's when I was like, okay, why am I here? That's pretty crazy that I managed to survive what most people did not. And so that's when I started going on this spiritual journey. I had been raised Catholic. I had even gone through 12 years of parochial school. So I was aware of the Catholic beliefs and Mother Mary and, Jesus and Mary Magdalene and all that. So that I think that was why I needed to go through that experience is to know who they were. And then when I started going down this path after I survived, I was determined to find, what fits. So I started asking questions in my early 30s that a lot of people probably don't start asking until they're, close to passing. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that at a very young age, and it put me on this spiritual path. I didn't really know about the guides and all that until Gary woke me up to that because he could talk to them all the time. He came back from the outback and he could see them. He could see them and he could communicate to them, and he would communicate to other people's angels and guides wherever they were, and he could just tell me all what's going on and what are they having to say. And when he passed, they told us he would be passing in about 6 months, and he did. Sure enough, he passed 6 months. I did not expect that he would show up every day at 8 o'clock after he's passed. He had a distinct pattern of energy that I could see. And I just was shocked by that. And so he just kept showing up at 8 o'clock every morning, not 8:01 and not 7:59. It was 8 o'clock. So, except one year, we do change our clocks an hour. It's ridiculous practice, but he was an hour off that day. But other than that, so that's when I started communicating to him. And I think, like a lot of people, I don't know about you and when you started asking those questions, but I was in my 30s. And, I started out very slowly where I would put Gary's wedding ring on a chain, and then I would use it as a pendulum and ask questions, and just kind of progressed and started doing muscle testing. And just now I just have developed this team that I work with, and I just get information all the time and in many different forms.
Wow. And I know you teach people how to connect deeper as well with that, right? Like, what do you feel the principles to start really becoming aware of the non-physical and actually then bringing that information through to help
Yeah.
us?
So at the request of my team, I had 2 books that they helped me write. They told me what they wanted. Angels in Waiting. It's about how to be aware that they're there waiting to assist you, but they have to have permission. They have to have permission. This is a free will planet. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. You're going to learn from it one way or the other. But when you ask for help, they will always respond. They may not respond the way you think they will or the way you want them to, but it is a huge difference. And so we are designed to have that connection to the other side. And we're designed to have the easiest connection to our guardian angels. They are like the first responders. They're the gatekeepers. And it's designed to be the easiest to communicate to them. And 1, 2, whatever. Everybody's different, but you can still communicate and ask for help from your loved ones who have passed over, from, archangels, spirit guides, whomever. But they wanted me to make it very clear to people that if you just talk to your guardian angel, that's plenty. If they need to bring in more help, they will. And you do it by simply talking to them like you would a friend. And you can do it in your head. They're telepathic to all our thoughts. But the biggest thing is they want to help. They love helping. And when we allow them to help, Guy, this is so important. When we allow them to help us, it allows them to grow. So we're allowing them to grow by every time we ask. So it's a symbiotic relationship that was always designed to be there. You were never designed to do this alone. You were always designed to have help, but you have to ask. And they've told me and made it very clear. It's like operating on your own, which is fine. And most people do. But that's like 5 amps of power. Whereas if you were to ask them to help, it goes up to like 5,000 amps of power. Huge.
Mm.
Why would you not ask for help? And that's a huge game changer. So I have 2 books about that. The one that's like a 60-day guidebook is called Vibrant Living, with braving the pandemic with help from your guardian angel. But it's really anything. It doesn't have to be a pandemic. It can be anything. It's like a guidebook on how to do that exactly. Because I think people think that when they decide to communicate, that they're going to start hearing them and seeing them. And most people don't have that developed, or it's not what this lifetime is going to be about. But every person is clairsentient. You're going to feel it. You may get goosebumps. I don't know what you do. I don't know what works for you, but a lot of people will feel it with their body. Everybody can feel that. And it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it develops. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fascinating because I feel when I hold space for others and go into a guided meditation, I feel the energy just start coming through, and I feel my personal energy expand a lot. And it's like merges with the room and the space. And then I'll start to feel presence come in, like another energy coming
yeah,
in, which is like,
yeah,
I still feel like a kid. It's like, that's
yeah.
possible. You know
It's
what I mean?
pretty
Like,
cool.
it's pretty cool. And then
Yeah.
most of the time I have no idea the feeling of which guardian angel or which archangel
Mhm.
or whoever's coming in, but there's always this lift of vibration and more light
Ah.
that comes in as well. It's quite beautiful.
Oh,
It
that is
really is.
beautiful. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
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 I think one thing that would be helpful to the listeners is to recognize how to start developing that intuition. And that's what those 2 books go into, is what makes it worse, what makes it better, what you're exposing yourself to, with what you're watching, what you're listening to, the foods, the people, how to increase that and raise that intuition. Here's something that I think everybody can relate to. When you ask a question, I'll ask my guides, my team a question. I talk to them all the time, and we're never going to annoy them, or they don't get impatient. They don't have those emotions. I may not get an answer right away, but I'll get it in time. It'll come in time. And when you get a response, another way I can tell it's them is I get a response. I just feel the answer. It's like a download. I get it before I've even finished asking the question. That's how I know it's them, because they know where I'm going to go. They'll answer before I've even finished. If you ask and you feel this immediate quick response, and usually it's very succinct, they don't go on and on and on. They will download a lot of information, but if you get an immediate response, that's from the other side. It's that second or third response. Now the mind's chimed in. Now the mind is involved. If you feel in that gut within 3 seconds, I call it a 3-second gut check. You know in your gut whether it's right or it's not for you. If you go beyond 3 seconds, okay, now the mind's involved. Mm-hmm. So it's very quick. You get better at it all the time.
How do you develop that trust? Because that's a big one.
That's a very big one. People have a hard time with it. They don't trust themselves, and they don't trust their team, because a lot of times people have asked for help and it hasn't come through the way they expected. It will come. They will respond every time. But what you can do, this is where I'm like, ask them for everything, big, small, vague, specific. I would say, thank you for helping me develop more trust. Thank you for helping me develop more trust in me, and thank you for helping me develop more trust in you. Then they will, with that 5,000 amps of power, help you develop that trust. Ask them every step of the way. Every step of the way. That's what they're here for. That's what they want to help you with. So you can throw anything at them. How do I find the best career? How do I live the highest vision of my soul? What is it, and how do I get there? Thank you for helping me. So you say thank you because it's like, it's okay, done deal. It's not, oh, please. It's not a prayer. It's a thank you. And they will respond.
It's quite funny because I've been putting that out lately myself, wanting to get clarity on direction. And interestingly enough, within days, things started shifting and opening up. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? This is a bit quick. What are you doing? Hang on. I'm not know if I'm ready yet. It's just like, hold on. It's like, if finally he's asking, let's go.
Especially Guy with the work that you're doing. They would love to help you with what you're here to do. And they can save you so much time, so much energy. They can help you find the way that's best, Just like when I decided to have this book made of the secrets of Aboriginal healing, I put it in their hands. All right, thank you for helping me get this into the right hands. Then people come to me. The doors open. I show up at this big event where the big dogs are in New York. And I'll be darned if we're not packing up, everybody's ready to leave. And I run into the publisher, and when I tell him about my book, he takes it and puts it in his backpack, and he's going to get on the plane with it. It's just, you can't create that. That's something that it's child's play. It is so easy for them, but this is why they need permission, because they can't just step in unless you ask and then let them do it.
You do it, right? You forget, because after I run events and things, I generally see a remote energy healer myself, so I can actually receive. And I'll go into space, and I'll always ask, if there's any messages come through, just let me know. I'm checking out. And the last 2 or 3 times, it's always, yeah, you had a message, surrender. And get out of the way.
Yeah, get out of the way. That's the thing. The mind always wants to be in charge. And so I tell people, it's like, the mind is really not equipped to be driving the bus. It's not. It's a tool. It's a very powerful tool, but it doesn't know what the soul really wants and how to do it, where the soul does, right? And your guides do. So you've got to get that mind. You've got to surrender that steering wheel and put your team behind it. And then I like the vision of the dog hanging out the car window, right? He's excited. And he doesn't know where they're going, but he knows that whoever's behind that wheel has his best interest at heart. Whether it's going to the dog park or getting his teeth cleaned, But the mind is not designed to do that. The mind is designed to follow the guidance, the intuitive guidance, but it's never designed to be in charge. How crazy that we're letting our minds drive us down these dark alleys. I mean, it's the world. Look at the world. That's what happens when you let the minds behind the wheel, because they're very fear-based.
Very. I love that analogy, by the way. I'm going to pitch that one with a dog. That is fantastic. I
And
can
Guy,
see
you're
it
going to
now.
start seeing dogs hanging out the window now after that.
I guarantee it. Yeah, phenomenal. Just moving on then with that fear-based, the world, the way it is framed at the moment, and there's this constant projection of separation. I mean, when you go online or the news, it's just like, oh my God, are they saying that at the moment? It's like, what is going on in the world? What do you feel is happening at the moment from the spiritual perspective and energetic perspective with consciousness itself? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I do, because I ask them about this all the time, because they want me to be very aware of what's going on so that I can come at it from a different angle, right? That I don't come at it from fear, but I come at it from love and compassion. What's happening is that it's sort of like we're going through the birthing pains to get to a new earth, to get to a new human. And it's shaking us up very hard, because it takes a lot to get us to change. We're not wired to want to change. That's just not the way humans are made. So it's taking a lot to get our attention. It's making us become grateful for what we have when you have all these disasters and that you survived it, right? You start recognizing what matters and what's important. So we're going into a higher consciousness. We are currently a third dimensional planet, right? And that dimension is not a place, it's a frequency, it's a vibration. And we're shifting into fourth dimension, which is a higher frequency, more loving, more compassion. When you get to extreme joy and really extreme gratitude, that's fourth dimensional frequencies and emotions. And heading to fifth, that's where we're going. That's where we're very high consciousness, very loving. That's what these outback Aboriginal people are in this fifth dimensional existence. You're telepathic to each other's thoughts. That's where we're going. And we have these energies hitting us. I mean, I don't know if we could go into all kinds of ways with yugas and all that and the cycles, but right now we have this unobstructed view to the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So we are being bombarded with higher frequency energies that we have not had before. And that affects not just this planet, Gaia, it affects everything on her. So we're being hit with this higher consciousness that's going to wake us up faster. But it's very uncomfortable. It's like a washing machine that's out of balance. If you're not in these higher frequencies, it's very uncomfortable. So, and that's why another reason why a lot of people are leaving. There will be other places that serve third dimensional frequencies and people and learning. But this planet is no longer going to do that. She's going up to fifth. She's also being affected by all of this. She's going to fifth, and she wants as many to go with her as possible. So we're not having these mass catastrophes like we have had in the past, but we are getting hit very quick, very hard with that sort of thing.
So would you say then the frequency is already here, and then but we're still in ourselves in this three-dimensional thinking, belief system, way of being, in ourselves in this three-dimensional, so uncomfortable, and it's like if we start to surrender.
Yes, and when you're in that higher space, you are just at peace. It doesn't matter what chaos is going around you, because you realize that's where they need to be for what they're learning. I'm at peace. I don't need that. You're okay with it. When I went to France, we were making a movie and we were getting into these really high frequencies because we were in these locations and the channelings and the energies, right? I was at such peace with the world. It's not that I wanted war or injuries or that sort of thing, but I was okay with it because I realized it's here for a reason. Is that I don't need to step into that classroom, right? And so my classroom is very different. And that's really what it amounts to, is what classroom are you in? What campus are you on? And if you start going into the judgment and the negativity, well, then you're not done with that class, right?
Yeah.
So, and those who aren't ready, and there's no judgment, those who aren't ready to go into that higher consciousness, those higher frequencies, that's fine, but this is no longer going to service that school level.
And it really all starts to come back to then the awareness and the willingness to declare I want something different and start becoming that of in which you want to see in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where am I getting stuck and why? And that's when you start realizing, oh, okay, this is that person in my life. Usually it's a family member because we're constantly exposed to them, is one of my greatest teachers, but man, are they a challenge to live with, right? But that's how you learn what you're here to learn. And whether it's going to be an illness that helps get you to that place, or, some emotion that you're just tired of. Finally, can I be done with this? And this is where, Guy, you ask your team. You've got a team. Everybody has a team. I just have a different team when I am exposed to healing versus when I'm doing something else. If you allow them to help you, you will get there with much more ease, grace, and joy, much more quickly. There's a huge difference between trying to do it on your own with the mind versus allowing them to help you, because they will download energies into you. They will shift you and change you. I like to ask them, thank you for helping me let go of what's in my best interest to let go of. I don't even need to know what that is. And thank you for helping me open into what's in my best interest to open up to. Thank you for helping me live the highest vision of my soul. Of course they have permission to help you with that. Of course they do.
Wow. I love it. When you, just as we come to the end of the podcast, but I'm curious, when you work with people remotely, so if somebody listens to this podcast and says, oh, everything Robbie resonates with, I want to come and see her, right?
Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
You don't do that anymore?
No. First of all, when I was so sick in my early 30s, I never thought I'd hit 40. I really didn't. Nobody expected me to. And now I'm 70. And so I have decided that I love to do things like this. I love to talk to people and help as many people as possible. But the consultations I had to let go of. But this is why we put all this information in these books. And it's all up on the website. There's a lot of free information. We want to spread the information as much as possible. So we try to get it all out there so that
it's all there. I hear you. And I understand. Yeah. I don't do one-on-one with anyone at all.
Yeah.
I do my groups and
I love what you're doing though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Look, well, on that note, is there anything you want to add as we bring the podcast for a close in everything we've covered?
Okay, let me just ask my team, okay? Because they know.
I'd love to.
I have about 4 things that just popped in. Well, this is what they said to me a couple minutes ago, and this is what they want to say. It's simple. Don't make things complicated, okay? Whether it's talking to your guides or healing, it's very simple. Just don't let the mind complicate it. Because you know how the minds are, right? We just got to complicate everything. I look at how I used to travel with bags and bags of luggage. The better you get at it, the less you have. You carry just a backpack when you go traveling, So they just want to make it very clear. It's just the mind that likes to complicate it. It's simple.
Yeah. Totally. I know. I feel it. I think as well, because I see so many people in our workshops and events, and I really see what many people are actually carrying. I really empathize and feel it when they're in that. And it's like to witness then when they make that decision, I'm willing to change. I'm ready to do something different and really start to grab hold of this and kind of let go of the victim side of things and the story that's been crippling them down is challenging, but it's also where the rubber meets the road, really. And it is actually a simple choice. When you've written it all the way back down, it is just a choice.
And I'll tell you, Guy, that as a healer, one of the things that it's important to learn is that it's not your job to heal people unless they ask and they want, and that there's nothing wrong with people suffering. That's one thing my guides are always telling me is there's nothing wrong with pain. It's a really powerful motivator. And if somebody's in pain, that's what they need to do for what they're doing. And that we all have signed up for this. The kids, the wildlife, we all agreed to this. So, we may not understand why things have happened the way they are, but they happen for a reason. Yeah. And so just be at peace with, you can still feel compassion, but you can let go this desire, this strong need to fix somebody. Because they'll say nobody's broken, nobody needs to be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie,
Yeah.
it was so wonderful reconnecting with you,
Yeah.
coming back on the show. Are we ever going to see you in Australia, my lovely? Do you ever get over here?
I'm just my travel agents, who knows what they've got in store for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got me pretty busy now, though. I'm rewriting one of the books that's going to go up soon.
Oh, wow.
The 60-page, the 60-day guidebook that we were just talking about. It's
Okay.
going to be called Living Your Best Life. It's the same book basically, but we made a few changes. So, yeah, they keep me busy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
but if I do, I'll let you know. I'm so glad to see you, and I love how you're thriving and the work that you're doing. It's just beautiful, Guy.
Thank you so much. And I truly hope everyone that listens to this podcast today, go and get your book, or books, I should say. Truly.
Yeah, whatever resonates with them.
Yeah. Get amongst it. It's absolutely fabulous. Robbie, thank you so much, my lovely. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Much love to you.
Much love.